Well, I'm going to be smoking the H. Upmann Magnum 46 this evening. I must correct myself. It's the Cuban H. Upmann Magnum 46, and there is a difference with that. I've never actually smoked one of these before, and it looks like a very nice, well-constructed cigar. Looks to be a triple cap on it, and it has a good amount of veins on it. I don't know if the camera can really catch that, but there's a lot of veins in this, and doesn't actually smell like a whole lot. If you had to push me against a wall and make me decide, I'd say it smells kind of like a barnyard. But that's actually not that uncharacteristic for a lot of cigars to actually smell like that, the aroma that they give off. But just a little bit of background about this cigar. This is, as I said, a Cuban cigar, but it was actually first introduced by a German banker named Hermann Upmann. And obviously he lived in Germany, but he loved Cuban cigars so much that he ended up moving to Cuba, opening a bank there, and he started to create his own cigars. And this was in about 1844. So this is one of the older Cuban brands, and I might add that it is a very, very popular cigar. But even after his death, obviously the cigar lives on and it's embossed with his name. And it just, from what I've heard, it's an absolutely wonderful cigar. Now, the 46 on there, you might be wondering what that represents. It's the circumference of the cigar. It is a 46 ring gauge. It's not too bulky of a cigar. It's actually a Toro. The smell, I'm liking it now, a little bit. I was catching a little bit of that aroma. But just a little bit about Cuban cigars. Obviously, you can't sell them here. So if you want one of these, you're gonna have to travel abroad or purchase them online, and that's because of the embargo that was put in place against the Cuban government back in 1962 from President John F. Kennedy. The funny thing was, President Kennedy was a cigar fanatic, and he loved Cuban cigars, particularly this brand, H. Upmann. So what he did is, before he signed the embargo against Cuba, barring all trade from Cuba to the United States of America, he sent Pierre Salinger, his press secretary, to get him some H. Upmann cigars. He said he wanted 1,000 of them. And it was relatively short notice, and Salinger was like, oh, I don't know if I can get these. Well, he ended up getting 1,200 of them. And a few days later, President Kennedy calls Salinger to his office and he says, Mr. Salinger, how did we do? And he says, I got you 1,200 of them. And President Kennedy smiled, opened his drawer in his office, took out a long sheet of paper, signed it. It was the embargo against Cuba. So he got his cigars, signed the embargo. Now it was no longer illegal contraband for him to have these cigars. But it looks like a wonderful cigar, and like I said, you can't buy Cubans here. If you do, it's a big mistake, because 90% of the Cubans that are sold here in the United States, particularly the big brands, Monte Cristo, Cohiba, they're fake. 9 out of 10 of them, maybe even more than that, are fake. And even if someone gives you one and you don't know where it came from, or you buy some by mistake, or you have some and you haven't smoked them, I wouldn't smoke them if I were you, because you don't know what's in those. I've seen videos of people cutting open fake Cuban cigars and finding sawdust and all sorts of weird stuff in them. So make sure you're getting the real deal. Now, in my last installment, or actually there's a couple installments prior to this, I talked about lighting the cigar. In this installment, I want to talk about the different methods of cutting your cigar. Now, there's 3 primary ways to do it. The first one, I'm going to grab it here, it's known as the guillotine cut. And quite simply, you take the guillotine and you insert it into the cigar like so, and you nip off just enough of it so that you're able to get a good draw from the cigar. Now, you have to be cautious with these, because the cigar, the way it's wrapped with the wrapper, it ends towards the shoulder, and they put a cap over that. Well, if you cut too far into the cap, you'll unravel the cigar and you will not be enjoying it, I promise you that. So they do make a foolproof way by putting a metal shield in the back of some of them. But the problem with that is it really prevents you from cutting more than you want. So if you don't have a good draw and you want to take off just a little bit more, if you've got that metal plate back there, it's not going to allow you to do that. So that's just a word of caution. Another way to do that is with a V-cut. Now, I'm not a big advocate of the V-cut. It just cuts a notch essentially into the cigar. It's a safe way to cut your cigar. Some people will even make a cross with it using that. And the third and final way would be a punch. And on the back of my lighter, if I can get this open, I have a little punch on it. You can probably see the side of it there. And you just take it and you gently press it into the back of the cigar and it makes a little opening. Now they make different gauges for these, but I'm not a fan of these either. And the reason being is it really limits the draw that you can get from the cigar. Like I said, the least safe way to cut your cigar is with a guillotine. You just need to be careful and cut off the right amount and you'll be just fine, and you'll get a very pleasant draw from them every time. So let's cut this. And we'll get it lit up. Give it just a second here. Take off just a little bit. I always like to give it a little blow, just getting your loose tobacco off.